A battery that costs $20. That's what the headline says. And if you've spent more than 30 seconds thinking about it, you already know something doesn't add up. A $20 battery powerful enough to drive a car hundreds of miles? That's not a breakthrough, that's a magic trick. So before we go any further, let's just say it out loud. No, there is no complete electric vehicle battery that costs $20. Not today, not from BYD, not from anyone. And the moment you understand why that headline exists anyway, the real story becomes a whole lot more interesting than the clickbait version. Because here's the thing. The engineers aren't laughing at that number. The investors aren't dismissing it. The executives at Tesla, at CATL, at Stellantis, and Volkswagen are not sleeping well because of a rumor. They are losing sleep because something real is happening inside BYD's factories. And the $20 framing, as misleading as it is, points directly at a shift in the economics of electric vehicles that could reshape the entire global auto industry within the next 5 years. So what is actually going on? What did BYD really develop? And why does a number that isn't even technically accurate manage to shake the entire industry to its foundation? To answer that, you need to understand where battery costs actually come from. An electric vehicle battery is not a single object. It's an engineered system made of cells, modules, structural components, cooling systems, wiring, and software. When manufacturers talk about the cost of a battery, they are usually measuring it in dollars per kilowatt hour, which is the unit of energy storage. A decade ago, that number was above $500 per kilowatt hour. By 2020, it had dropped to around $137 per kilowatt hour across the industry. By 2023, some manufacturers were reporting costs approaching $100 per kilowatt hour. The magic number the industry has been chasing for years is $100 per kilowatt hour, because that's roughly the point where electric vehicles become cost competitive with gasoline cars without any subsidies at all. So when someone throws around a figure like $20, what they are likely describing is not a complete pack, but a projection, a target, or the cost of a specific cell chemistry at a specific scale. That distinction matters enormously, and it also explains why the number spread so fast. Because even as a rough directional claim, it suggests BYD is operating in a cost territory that Western manufacturers haven't reached yet. Now let's talk about what BYD actually announced. In March of 2026, Reuters reported on a significant upgrade to BYD's Blade battery, the company's flagship lithium iron phosphate cell architecture. This was described as the first major enhancement to the Blade platform in 6 years, and the technical claims attached to it were genuinely remarkable. The updated pack was reported to charge from 20% to 97% in under 12 minutes. Let that sink in for a second. Under 12 minutes. That is roughly the time it takes to fill a gas tank on a road trip. The same report noted a claimed range of 777 kilometers in certain vehicles under Chinese testing standards. That figure translates to roughly 480 miles, which would comfortably exceed the range of virtually every mass-market electric vehicle currently on sale in the United States. To understand why the Blade battery matters so much, you need to go back to where it started. BYD introduced the original Blade battery in 2020, and at the time, most Western analysts underestimated its significance. The architecture is elegant in a way that accountants love almost as much as engineers do. Traditional battery packs are built by grouping cells into modules, and then assembling those modules into a pack. Every layer of that structure adds weight, adds cost, adds complexity, and adds potential failure points. BYD's Blade design eliminated the module layer entirely. The cells are long, flat, and structural. They slot directly into the pack like blades in a handle, hence the name, and the cells themselves become part of the physical structure of the vehicle floor. This cell-to-pack architecture means you are using the same material to store energy and to hold the car together. You are not paying twice for two separate systems. The result is a pack that is lighter, cheaper to manufacture, and actually safer in certain types of structural tests because the load is distributed differently. Independent safety analyses have generally confirmed that the Blade architecture performs well in penetration and crush scenarios. That is a verified fact, not a BYD marketing claim. Now layer on top of that the chemistry advantage. Lithium iron phosphate, the chemistry BYD uses in the Blade battery, is inherently cheaper than the nickel manganese cobalt chemistry used in most Tesla and premium EV batteries. Iron and phosphate are abundant. Cobalt is rare, geopolitically complicated, and expensive. By building its entire mass market strategy around lithium iron phosphate, BYD avoided the supply chain vulnerabilities that haunt other manufacturers. The trade-off has historically been energy density. Lithium iron phosphate stores less energy per kilogram than nickel manganese cobalt, which is why BYD's early vehicles sometimes had shorter ranges. But BYD has been systematically closing that gap through pack design, not chemistry. By making the pack structure more efficient, they extract more usable energy from the same cells. That engineering discipline, sustained over years, is where the real cost compression story lives. Then there's the question of what happens when you scale manufacturing at BYD's level. BYD is not just a car company, it is one of the world's largest battery manufacturers. It supplies cells to other automakers while simultaneously building its own vehicles. That vertical integration is a strategic weapon. When BYD improves a manufacturing process, the savings propagate across millions of units simultaneously. When Tesla or General Motors wants to improve their battery supply chain, they are often negotiating with a separate company, navigating contracts, and dealing with competing priorities. BYD is negotiating with itself. Reuters also reported that BYD is actively expanding its battery production capacity into Brazil, which signals that the company is not just optimizing for the Chinese domestic market, it is building the industrial infrastructure to compete globally at the same cost structure it has achieved at home. That is a geopolitical move wrapped inside a factory announcement. So where does the $20 figure actually come from? The honest answer is that it is not a verified industry benchmark, and it is not a figure BYD has officially published in that form. The most likely explanation is that it emerged from extrapolations or commentary around cell-level costs at extreme scale, possibly for a sodium-ion architecture rather than lithium iron phosphate. In February of 2026, Reuters separately reported that BYD announced sodium-ion batteries with a cycle life of up to 10,000 charge and discharge cycles, which is extraordinary compared to the 3,000 to 4,000 cycles typical of current lithium iron phosphate packs. Sodium-ion chemistry uses even more abundant materials than lithium iron phosphate. Sodium is essentially salt. If sodium-ion batteries can be manufactured at scale with that kind of longevity, the theoretical floor for cell cost drops dramatically. Whether that floor is $20 per kilowatt hour or $30 or $50 is genuinely uncertain. But the directional logic of the claim is not crazy. It is aggressive and premature, but it points at something real. BYD also told Reuters in February 2026 that it expects small-scale production of sulfide-based solid-state batteries around 2027. Solid-state batteries replace the liquid electrolyte inside a conventional cell with a solid material, which theoretically allows for higher energy density, faster charging, and improved safety. Every major automotive battery developer in the world is working on solid-state technology. Toyota has made bold claims about it. QuantumScape has been pursuing it with Volkswagen backing for years. The fact that BYD is targeting small-scale production by 2027 puts it roughly in the same timeline as its competitors, though none of these programs have yet produced a commercially validated product at automotive scale. This is the frontier of battery science, not the current showroom floor. This brings us to the competition, because you cannot understand the significance of BYD's trajectory without understanding who is watching and why it matters to them. Tesla's battery strategy has historically centered on energy density and performance. The 468 zero-cylindrical cell introduced in recent Model Y and Cybertruck production is a genuine engineering achievement that improves manufacturing efficiency and thermal management. But Tesla's cost structure for cells is still higher than BYD's, partly because of the nickel-manganese cobalt chemistry, and partly because Tesla's gigafactory scale, while enormous, has not yet matched BYD's combined output when you count BYD's third-party supply business. Tesla's advantages lie in software integration, the supercharger network, and brand positioning in the premium segment. Those are real and durable advantages. But in the mass market cost competition, BYD is currently leading by measurable metrics in markets where both compete directly. CATL, the world's largest battery manufacturer by volume, is also watching BYD's cell-to-pack moves carefully because BYD's architecture essentially bypasses CATL's core business model, which is selling modules to automakers. If the module disappears from the supply chain, so does a significant portion of CATL's revenue. So here's the question you should be sitting with right now. If BYD is this far ahead on cost engineering, why aren't American consumers driving BYD cars today? The answer is a combination of trade policy, tariffs, and industrial politics. The United States currently imposes tariffs of 100% on Chinese electric vehicles, which effectively price BYD out of the American market regardless of their manufacturing cost advantage. That policy exists precisely because American policymakers recognize that BYD's cost structure, if allowed to compete freely, would devastate domestic automakers before they can close the gap. The tariff is not a verdict on BYD's technology. It is an acknowledgement of how formidable that technology actually is. What remains remains unverified, and this matters, is whether BYD's performance claims for the new Blade generation hold up in real-world conditions across different climates, duty cycles, and regulatory environments. The charging speed of under 12 minutes from 20 to 97% is a figure from controlled testing. Cold weather, high elevation, repeated fast charging over hundreds of cycles, and real consumer usage patterns all stress-test battery systems in ways that factory measurements don't fully capture. The 777-kilometer range figure comes from Chinese testing standards, which have historically been more optimistic than the Environmental Protection Agency cycles used in the United States. An honest comparison would likely show a more modest but still competitive real-world number. Sodium-ion batteries with 10,000 cycle longevity need to be validated in production vehicles over time, not just in laboratory conditions. And solid-state production targets from any manufacturer deserve healthy skepticism until cells are actually rolling off production lines and into cars that real people are driving. None of those caveats make the story less important. They make it more important to follow carefully, because the difference between hype and reality in this space is measured in billions of investment dollars and millions of consumer choices. If BYD's new Blade battery delivers even 80% of what it claims in real-world conditions, it represents a meaningful step toward the moment when electric vehicles are genuinely cheaper to own than gasoline cars without any government assistance at all. That moment, not a specific $20 number, is the actual inflection point the industry is racing toward. For more on what's coming down the road before it arrives in your driveway, join us here. The industry is moving fast, and the last thing you want is to be the person who finds out too late.